I've always wanted to get dominant species marine to the table. I managed to convince 2 reluctant friends to give it a try. We're going to talk about our first impressions here on Legendary Tactics.
Okay, so dominant species marine, guys.
Yes.
Now, we need to be fair to this game. We're going to talk about what we like. We're also going to share what we don't like. So,
okay, now, and also to be fair, we did receive a free copy of this game from GMT, and you guys have yet to play a full game.
That's right,
Okay,
yeah.
But we did play for, hour and a half or whatever it was.
Yeah, and we did have a run through back a couple
and we did
months.
play, we played it before,
That's right. I feel like I've got enough of a sense of the game to know what I like and what I don't like at this point.
But it is a first impressions review, so take that for what it is. Okay,
Absolutely.
you start off. What did you like about dominant species?
So what I love in a game is when it's easy to learn. Well, in this case, I didn't have to learn it. NATO just sort of taught everything. I didn't find this one particularly easy to learn, only because this side track here, there's so many elements. But this is not my negative. This is actually my positive. I love a game with a lot of strategy. And I find that in a game like this, my brain hurts because there are so many choices. So many times in the game, I'm like, I know what I want to do. How do I get that done? And I'd have to refer to you and say, what do I need to do in order to make this happen? So it's a game of levers, buttons, and you can do whatever you want, but you just have to remember there is the limitation of turn order in terms of playing in a sequence. So again, more strategy. So this is a game that is abundant in strategy, and so that's a positive for me.
What about you, Cax?
So I really liked the mechanic, because I haven't seen this in a lot of games, where basically you keep going down and every person waits till their turn's over, and if you're done early, you can collect your pieces and reset and keep going.
Yes,
I find that is such a cool mechanic that I've never seen anywhere else.
Yeah,
it's really neat and really a real clever piece to this game that I really enjoyed.
It's funny when you're the person who's got the 1 or 2 or 3 pieces left while everybody else is reset. You feel like you're at a disadvantage because it's like, oh, they've already started on their next turn. But when you're the person who's reset already, it's like, oh, they're still playing actions from their previous set of cubes. So from both sides, I mean, there might be a benefit to going early, and there might be a benefit to holding your pieces later. So that's again
one of the things to kind of balance.
Another lever, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if you want to go for something later, but then you have to waste a turn resetting early.
That's right.
And so you do lose a bit of momentum when you
also play with a used board, right? The board's already been picked out. So you're getting less choices. However, you are getting a fresh set of options.
And as soon as you pull all your tokens off, that suddenly opens up the option for the people still with remaining. So suddenly those like scoring the land tile a second time in the same turn is a power play that you can do. So
it's a really clever mechanic.
There's a lot going on.
I love that. I love that. Nito, how about you?
For me, the more I play this game, and I think this is my 3rd game, 4th game or something like that, so I'm a little more experienced with it. The strategic depth of choices and so forth, I just find that really, really fascinating. It's kind of what you were saying, but from the perspective of seeing how all the actions work together, and how you want to adapt your species, you want to use abundance to get those types of food down there so they don't slip into autotrophs or depletion. There's a lot that way of kind of 3D thinking. Then you mix in all the evolution cards as well and the effects and trying to, figure out the best course of action. As you said, it's a very deep strategic game, and it's typically something I gravitate to.
Yes.
And at the same time, I don't think, even though you say there's a lot of choices, I don't think it's totally overwhelming. There's a lot of choices, but once you kind of try it a few times, you're like, okay, I'm going to do, I spotted an opportunity for this, and so I'll do that. Or, you begin to see opportunities that way.
So if I could classify it, I'd say medium learn, heavy strategy.
Yeah, something,
so
yes. That's
it's not
fair.
Heavy learn, heavy strategy.
Yeah, that's fair. I also kind of like the aesthetic. I'll just throw that in. I mean, it's a pretty sharp looking game, I think, even though I know Flash isn't a fan of the wooden cubes. I think it's bright. It has a nice kind of very playable look to it. It doesn't. It's not drab. It's kind of vibrant on the table, which I think is very good. So I kind of chose two things, but I hope that's okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Well,
So
allow this
fine.
stuff.
All right.
Yep.
Now,
Well, for my negatives, I'm actually going to choose two as well.
okay, you choose.
So,
okay, fair enough. So you go first.
What would be the counterbalance here?
What didn't
The
you like?
bookending. Two elements, actually. So one, I found that, and this could be our own fault, but there were some cards that I found very overpowering. So one, for instance, the radiation,
solar radiation.
Had I bought that card at the top of the board, it would have allowed me to wipe out 5 tokens on any square I'm in. So basically, if I'm all over the board, I can wipe out everything you've done up until that point of the game.
Yeah.
And to me, that felt a bit swingy. It was just, wow. Like, I inadvertently chose that card when it was already down at 2, and it still felt overpowered there. So that would be negative number 1. Negative number 2, I found, and this is not a fault to you, but I was thinking throughout the game, there were a number of times when they were processing what they were going to do, and partly because the game's new to us, but partly because there's so many options. Cax, if you watch our playthrough, Cax was trying to decide, what do I do? How do I go? Where do I, and it took him about 10 minutes, and finally in the end, he played retrieve, reaction. And so, I'm sitting there for like 5-10 minutes waiting for my turn, only to have him do nothing. And so that would be my other negative, is that it depends who you play with. You're a fairly quick decider, and you'll make your play, and you guys are both like that. But if you play this with someone who has analysis paralysis and can't make a decision, this would be, with 5 players, this would be interminable.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
So those are my 2 criticisms.
Yeah.
I think my number 1 criticism would be that basically one of the things you liked about this game, I found it difficult, and I think it's just the learning, and it maybe would reflect on your learning curve. It's the number of choices, and I just don't find the choices intuitive. I look at a word like tectonics. That doesn't tell me what it's meant to do as an action, or evolution. Okay, maybe it's something about shifting something somewhere. Like, I just don't find the actions line up with what they're supposed to do, and
like Wanderlust feels like your pieces would move around the board, and they don't. That's a tile allows
which you
to
can move on to.
But it's confusing the language that way.
Right, and I kept looking at even the diagrams for support. I didn't find them even overly helpful.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to, and then it just was never there. And so that was just like, it was like out of grasp. And so you just have to sit down, bite the bullet, and learn those 13 actions, I think.
Yes.
And figure it out.
I think a lot of this will be overcome with experience.
More play.
I think if you play it maybe 1 or 2 more times, it would flow a lot better.
If you get to that stage, because a lot of players won't. They'll give up if they find it too hard, too complicated. They'll quit. So this isn't for the faint of heart.
Yes. Even though you say it's a medium learn. So anyway, my only criticism of the game actually comes, and I had to think about this one actually, because I really do think this is a great game, but it kind of stems from what you said, and it's the scoring. Sometimes the scoring, I'm like, why do I score for placing this one ocean tile? Why do I score 10 points? Like, to me, that is what I find a bit tough about it, is the scoring doesn't seem like intuitive. Like, so I place an ocean, and I place one guy in there,
right?
With Wanderlust, and I score 10 points, which is pretty good. But why? Like, I just took an action
compared to scoring all this infrastructure
for building up infrastructure and going for it that way. So it's not necessarily a knock against it, but because obviously you can build strategies around that, and like any game you can do that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, a placed event, why am I getting victory points for that? Versus scoring the tiles, which I do feel is much more intuitive. Like, I love this, where this is worth 4 for the leader, 2 for the person in second place. That really makes sense to me. That's kind of a scoring mechanism that is intuitive. But there's a few things in here where I'm like, like, you get victory points, which is awesome, but why exactly? Like, so I don't know why the designer chose to do it that way, but anyway, I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but that part of it was a bit, it was a bit weird to me, I guess. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it's just a bit unintuitive, so yeah.
So now you need to do the most important thing, which is tell us what you like, what you don't like about this game. We'll have a conversation in the comments.
And don't forget to get out there,
get gaming,
and be legendary.